Now, there's no denying that the NBA has had its fair share of suspicious moments. You know, when a player is on a heater and suddenly stops scoring, rebounding, or assisting the ball? Or what about when a team is down by 30 and all of a sudden the refs are making calls that weren't being made before and the losing team ends up covering the spread or sometimes even winning the game? Or how about when a franchise who has a 1% chance of getting the number one draft pick ends up getting it anyways? Now, in light of Jeante Porter's latest investigation into his illegal prop betting, it made me wonder, what are the top 5 most rigged moments of the NBA? Allegedly. Welcome back to No Small Talk, Just Ball Talk, so let's cut the chit chat and get right into it. Here are the top 5 most rigged moments of the NBA, in my opinion. Now, for number 5 on my list, we got none other than the latest scandal to hit the NBA, Jeante Porter's prop betting investigation. Now, Jeante Porter, who's the brother of Michael Porter Jr., has recently come under fire as there have been multiple betting irregularities on his player props over the past several months. The former Toronto Raptors forward, who was on a two-way contract with the team, became the center of an investigation from games played on January 26th of 2024 as well as March 20th of 2024 as well. Now on January 26th, the Raptors were playing against the Clippers, and prior to the tip-off for that game, there was an increased betting interest on the unders for Porter's player props, which were set for 6 points, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, and 1 3-pointer made. Now, coincidentally, Porter only played 4 minutes that night before leaving the game due to an aggravation of a previous eye injury. Thus, Porter did not score in those 4 minutes of play. However, he did get 3 rebounds and 1 assist, but nonetheless, all of the unders on his props hit that night. Now, the next day, it was revealed that the unders on Porter's player props on DraftKings was the biggest money winner for bettors out of any NBA player prop that evening. Now, similarly, on March 20th against the Sacramento Kings, Porter played just 3 minutes of the game prior to leaving due to an illness and did not return. Now, in those 3 minutes, he only attempted just 1 shot and had 2 rebounds, whereas his over-unders were set at 8 points and 6 rebounds for the game. Thus, the next day, DraftKings once again reported that Porter's prop bets were the number 1 money winner on that night in the NBA as well. Now, this investigation recently came to an end as Porter was found guilty and was given a lifetime ban from the NBA. Now for number 4 on my list, we got the Cleveland Cavaliers getting the number 1 pick in 2011, 13, and 2014. Now you would think that the Cavaliers were lucky in getting the number 1 pick in 2003 and drafting their hometown hero in LeBron James, who would become a staple for the franchise for their next 8 years. But no, their supposed luck didn't stop there. Now, coincidentally, after LeBron had left the Cavaliers franchise in 2010 to pair up with Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh in Miami, the Cleveland Cavaliers ended up getting the number 1 draft pick that year, which they only had a 2.8% chance of getting at that time, and would go on to draft Kyrie Irving, who was arguably the most skilled basketball player of all time, and would later on become a big part in winning a championship for the Cleveland Cavaliers for their franchise's first time in over 50 years, alongside Kevin Love and LeBron James upon his return back in 2016. However, from the time the Cavs had drafted Kyrie in 2011 until LeBron's return in 2015, the team did have the worst record in the league. Thus, in 2013, they once again got the number 1 pick in the draft lottery, which at the time they only had a 15.6% chance of getting. Now with this pick, the Cavs had drafted Anthony Bennett, who some would consider the worst draft pick of all time. Now after a disappointing rookie year with the Cavs, Bennett was later traded to the Minnesota Timberwolves and then to the Toronto Raptors and finally to the Brooklyn Nets prior to being waived from the NBA for good. He then took his talents overseas and has been playing there ever since. Now mind you, this draft class included the likes of Giannis, Rudy Gobert, as well as CJ McCollum. Now the following year in 2014, and with only a 1.7% chance, the Cavs got the number 1 draft pick in the lottery again and would go on to draft Andrew Wiggins. However, shortly after, Wiggins would be traded to the Minnesota Timberwolves for Kevin Love, thus forming the big three of LeBron, Kyrie, and Love, who upon LeBron's return would end up winning a championship together in 2016. However, Wiggins would also turn out to be a good player and would also end up winning a championship with the Golden State Warriors in 2022. Now, it's been widely speculated that after LeBron had left in 2010, the Cavaliers were in dire need of a superstar as the fan base was livid. Thus, the league allegedly gave them opportunity time and time again to get a superstar to replace LeBron and keep the franchise alive. Now for number 3 on this list, we got the infamous veto trade of Chris Paul to the Lakers to pair with Kobe Bryant. Now in 2010, Chris Paul, who was at the time considered the best point guard in the NBA, was rumored to want out of the New Orleans Hornets, a team he was leading to the playoffs year after year. Now it wasn't until the 2011-2012 season that a deal had been put in place to send Chris Paul to the Lakers in a 3-team trade, which would have sent Pau Gasol to the Rockets, as well as Lamar Odom, Luis Scola, Kevin Martin, Goran Dragic, and a 2012 first-round pick to the Hornets. Now, this deal was pretty much considered to be done and set in stone at the time, as all the contracts and pieces matched up. However, that was until Commissioner David Stern and various team owners of other franchises such as Dan Gilbert and Mark Cuban got involved. Now, one of the owners, Dan Gilbert of the Cleveland Cavaliers, had actually written the now infamous letter to David Stern requesting him to veto the trade, pretty much stating that this trade would ruin the league and make things unfair for other teams who were looking to contend. Now, coincidentally, at this time, the league was actually the owner of the Hornets, as they did not have an ownership group in place for the team. Thus, David Stern, the commissioner of the NBA, was also acting as the owner of the Hornets and was making all of the front office decisions. Thus, Stern had ultimately decided to veto the trade, citing that the trade did not make sense from a basketball perspective for all the teams involved. Chris Paul was then traded to the Clippers not too long after, where he would play alongside Blake Griffin and DeAndre Jordan, who were shortly coined as Lob City. Now, I could kind of see why the league and the owners would be upset at this trade, as the Lakers had won the last 2 out of 3 championships at that time, and also because Chris Paul was considered as one of the best point guards in the league at that time. However, since then, we have seen similar situations, some of which were trades and some of which were free agency, where superstar players have teamed up to make the league unfair. Most notably was Kevin Durant going to the Golden State Warriors, and you can also make a case for LeBron, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh teaming up in Miami as well. Now, a more recent example could also be Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and James Harden in Brooklyn, which ultimately did not work out due to injuries. Now, considering this information, this left a sour taste in basketball fans' mouths to this day, and I'm sure has Chris Paul scratching his head and thinking, what if? Now, for number 2 on my list, we got referee Tim Donaghy betting on NBA games. Now, this story is one of the most infamous stories in the NBA and was actually proven to be true. The now convicted felon and former referee Tim Donaghy was actually caught betting on NBA games that he both officiated and witnessed from the 2003 to the 2007 NBA seasons. Now, Donaghy stated that he used code language to tip his friends, bookies, and pro gamblers regarding players' physical conditions and also player-referee relations prior to games, and would then bet using this inside information. Now, this went on for 4 years, and it wasn't until 2007 that Donaghy had surrendered and pleaded guilty to 2 felony charges of conspiracy, and it wasn't until 2008 that he was sentenced to 15 months in prison. Now, upon his release, Donaghy had released a tell-all book titled Personal Foul, a first-person account of the scandal that rocked the NBA, where he addresses his scandal, the sociology of betting, and what ultimately led to his demise. He has since then done many interviews and has been involved in movies and documentaries where he continues to speak about this experience, which I'm sure the NBA is not too keen about, as this just resurfaces a point in time where the integrity of the league was ruined. He has also pointed out other instances which he was not involved in, where he believed the league and the other referees were tampering with the game as well. Generally speaking, instances which would include referees making certain calls during the playoffs in order to drag the series on and add more games. Now, this was definitely one of the more interesting scandals and rig moments of the NBA, and actually leads me into my number one rig moment, which I am about to get into. However, prior to getting into my number one rig moment of the NBA, in my opinion, here are a few honorable mentions. So we got Anthony Davis drafted to the Pelicans in 2012. Now with Chris Paul gone and the Saints owner buying the former Hornets, now Pelicans, it needed a new superstar to launch the team. Now, although they were only the fourth worst team in the league that year, and with a 13% chance to get the number one pick, the Pelicans somehow got the pick and drafted Anthony Davis. Now next, we got Derrick Rose drafted to the Chicago Bulls in 2008. Now in 2008, the Chicago Bulls had a 1.7% chance to get the number one pick. However, they were able to get this pick and draft their hometown hero, Derrick Rose, who would later become the youngest MVP in the league and bring a once storied, iconic franchise in the Bulls back to relevance. Next, we got LeBron James drafted to the Cavaliers in 2003. Now, with only a 22% chance of getting the number one pick in 2003, the Cavaliers somehow were able to secure the pick and drafted their hometown legend in LeBron James, who saved the franchise and had later brought them a title, their first in over 50 years. Now next, we got Patrick Ewing drafted to the Knicks in 1985. Now with the Knicks having the third worst record in the league that season, they only had a 14% chance of getting the number one pick, and of course, they ended up getting it. Now some have speculated it was because the envelope that had the pick was tampered with and had been dented due to it being banged up on the lip vessel of the drum. Thus, the big market team in the Knicks were able to get Patrick Ewing. And lastly, we got Penny Hardaway traded to the Magic in 1993. So in 1993, the Magic get the number one pick with only a 1.52% chance of landing it, which is then traded to the Warriors for Penny Hardaway and 3 first-round picks. This led to the pairing of Shaquille O'Neal and Penny Hardaway, who then took the Magic from a subpar team to the playoffs for 3 years straight, and even the NBA Finals in the 1994-1995 season. Now that the honorable mentions list has been complete, let's get right into it. The number one most rigged moment of the NBA, in my opinion, is none other than Game 6 of the Sacramento Kings vs. Los Angeles Lakers playoff series in the Western Conference Finals in 2002. A game that has been allegedly said to be fixed and manipulated by 2 referees of the 3-man crew assigned to officiate it. Now, ironically, one of the sources of this information is none other than Mr. Tim Donaghy himself. However, many have brought up the horrible officiating for this game. Now, with the Sacramento Kings, led by Chris Webber and Mike Bibby, were up 3-2 on the Kobe and Shaq-led Lakers, Game 6 was pivotal for the Lakers, as it was either win or go home. Now, at the half, the Kings were up 56-51, and that's when things are said to have gotten a bit strange, as phantom fouls, missed calls, gifted free throws were the story of the second half for the Lakers. Now, the Lakers went on to shoot 21 free throws in the fourth quarter, and many analysts claim that there were several calls that weren't made for the Sacramento Kings. Calls which included a blatant elbow to the face by Kobe Bryant to Mike Bibby. Nonetheless, the Lakers ended up winning this game and the series, and eventually went on to sweep the New Jersey Nets in the NBA Finals to cap off their three-peat championship run. Now, Donaghy has since then come out and stated that 2 of the 3 referees officiating the game wanted a Game 7, perhaps because they had wagers on the game, or maybe because they got a call from the front office. He would also go on to state that NBA Commissioner David Stern favored the Lakers, as he wanted a large market team in the NBA Finals in order to boost the ratings. And it was also speculated that the TV network NBC also favored a Game 7, which would have benefited their ratings as well. All in all, this game has gone down in history as one of the most controversially officiated games of all time. Now, if I missed any rig moments of the NBA on this list, please make sure to comment them down below, as well as let me know your thoughts on the list I created. Please also make sure to check out the other videos I have posted on my channel, as well as like the videos and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed the content, and to also turn on your notifications to stay updated as to when I post next. Now, this is a new channel where my goal is to post 3 to 4 interesting NBA related videos a week, so please make sure to subscribe to stay updated. This was No Small Talk, Just Ball Talk, so stay locked. Peace.